I can start the presentation. First, so the session is split in two parts. The first part is going to be a little explanation on the Alma Cdi settings for your electronic collections and what their impact is on CDI. So this is the more technical part, and then we'll go into and look at some troubleshooting examples. We'll look at common questions that we receive from support on activation and content issues. First part will be me, and the part about the content issues troubleshooting will be handled by David and Ekby. So let's first look at the Alma Cdi settings. I want to explain a little bit what settings there are in Alma and how they impact CDI, because they're important when you start to look at issues that may arise in CDI and when you start troubleshooting them. So if we look at the Alma interface and what kind of settings there are, the first thing that is important is that there are two types of activation settings in Alma. And they're both important for CDI. The first is what we call Alma full text activation. And this has an impact on what will be returned by CDI when the user does what we call a filtered search. And the second type of activation is what we call CDI search activation. And this activation in Alma will have an impact on the CDI expand search. I'll come back to these types of searches in the next slide. So these are the activation settings in Alma that have an impact on CDI. We also have 3 additional settings related to CDI in Alma, and they are called, the first one is we subscribe to only some titles in this collection. We also call this the selective CDI settings. The second one is the do not show as full text available in CDI even if active in Alma. A long name, we sometimes shorten it to say the suppress setting. The third setting is the CDI only full text activation. So these are all the things that you can do in Alma and that have an impact on what your users will see when they search in the discovery system and they search CDI. First of all, we make a distinction between the filtered search and expand search, and they're important in the when we talk about activation for CDI in Alma. First of all, we have the filtered search, and you see that on the top of the screen. What's special about this filtered search is that when you execute this type of search, and this is typically the first search that the user does when they enter the discovery, it's not necessarily depends on your Primo and Primo V settings, but this search actually is filtered on full text availability. So we return all the records that, of course, match your search and that are active for your institution for full text in Alma. So all of the records will get this free green indication that says full text available in the result set. So this is the filtered search. And the second type of search that we have in CDI is what we call the expand search. And this search returns the same results as the filtered search. So all the records that you subscribe to in full text and have the green full text available indication in the results list, list. And additionally, it also contains all the records for collections that you have activated for search in Alma. This is what we call the expand search. In the fully flexible setting, you have the search activation. In easy active, you don't have this this type of activation, this search activation. So this is a different story. But for fully flexible customers, everything that you activate for search in Alma will return in the expand search in the discovery. Now let's look at Alma full text activation. So I'll first talk about full text activation, and then I'll talk about search activation. So how can you recognize that a collection in Alma is active for full text? What you will immediately see when you search in the Alma interface is that for the collections that in your institution zone that are active for full text, you'll get this blue icon, this blue human figure icon that indicates that this collection is active for full text in Alma. So how can you make a collection active in Alma? It's a bit different for different types of electronic collections in Alma. First of all, you have database types of collections, and you have aggregator or selective types of collection. The difference is that databases don't have portfolios; they're just one record in the one collection record. So a collection is active in Alma when it's of type database if it has an unsuppressed bib record and a collection level URL. That will make it active in Alma and get the blue indication. An aggregator or selective collection is active in Alma if it has an active full-text service and it has at least one active portfolio with an unsuppressed bib. That makes an aggregator or selective collection active in Alma, and that will trigger this blue icon to appear in Alma. So once a collection is active in Alma, what does it mean? A collection is active for full text, and that results in, first of all, the service showing up in your Alma uResolver page, and also the publishing of the unsuppressed bib records to your Primo local index. So when the user searches and the search is for the local content, they will find the bib when they do execute the search. So additionally, this activation will also make sure that CDI records affiliated with the active full text collection are included in the filtered search in the discovery, and you'll get this green full text available indication for the records. So this is an active collection in Alma. So once it's active, you'll see it in your uResolver, you'll see it in being published to Primo Local, and you'll see it in the CDI filtered search. Now we have something that what we call a CDI override setting. This is a setting that makes sure that even though you have a full text collection that is active in Alma, you're going to make it behave a little bit differently in CDI. This is what we call the CDI override setting for these active full text collections in Alma. And the override in this case is do not show as full text available in CDI, even if it's active in Alma. If you set this setting in the electronic collection editor to yes for a collection, you override the full text activation that you have in Alma. Let's look at what the impact is of using this override. First of all, you can use this override for any collection that is available for CDI search activation, yes, but also if it has portfolios in Alma. This is when you can see the setting in the Alma UI in the electronic collection editor. And if you use the option, the impact it will have on the CDI discovery is that it will no longer show up and be flagged as full text available in your discovery results. So the impact is only on CDI. It is not on your uResolver. So the collection will still appear on your link resolver, but not when you come from a CDI record. So the contents for these collections will also not be flagged as full text available. So they will no longer be part of your filtered search. And they will also not be part of your expand search unless you have activated the collection for search, or unless the same content in the collection is also available from another active collection. So this is the impact on CDI. It is essentially this setting makes it appear as if the collection was not activated for full text in Alma. Essentially, what happens behind the scenes is that this collection will not be published as part of the CDI publishing to CDI. So CDI doesn't really know that you have this active in Alma. So why would you use this override? Why would you use this option? In some cases, for example, for some open access collections, we have found that customers like to have the collection active in Alma. For example, they want it in their link resolver, but they don't want the records to be returned in their filtered search, in their full text search in Primo. Because, for example, it could increase the number of search results a lot, and it could clutter the result lists. So this is a reason why you could use this CDI override for full text active collections active for full text in Alma. So we looked at a collection in Alma that's active for full text. Let's look at a collection that is not active in Alma for full text. So how can you recognize very quickly in Alma that a collection is not active? You can look in your institution zone for collections that have this gray version of these human figures, this little icon with the that you see here on the top left of the screen. So when is a collection not active in Alma? Again, it's different for database types of collections versus aggregator and selective. For databases, it means that there's either a suppressed bib record or there's no collection level URL available for the database. For aggregator and selective collections, it means that you either have an inactive full text service. So when you activated the collection in the activation wizard, you didn't activate the full text service, or there are no active portfolios with unsuppressed bibs for this particular collection. So that means the collection is not active in Alma, and as a result, it will not show up in your uResolver services page. You will not be publishing bib records to the Primo local index, and it also has an impact on CDI. CDI records affiliated with these inactive collections are not included in the filtered search. I see I have a typo here in my slide. So no CDI records included. Again, so this collection, it's not active in Alma, so nothing really happens. It's not included in the Alma uResolver, not included in CDI. However, there is a Cdi override setting again. Cdi in this case will behave differently from the general activation settings in Alma. And the override setting that we have in this case is called Cdi only full text activation. And this setting, if you set it to yes, will change the behavior. It will appear for CDI as if this particular collection is active, even if it's not active in Alma, and it has this gray indication in the Alma interface. So let's look at this override. What does it mean if you have this override? If you use the CDI only full text activation and you set it to yes for a specific collection, in electronic collection in Alma, this means that all the records in this collection that you have this indication will get the full text available indication and be included in the filtered search. You actually activate the collection on collection level, so not one or two portfolios from the whole set, but the whole collection, all the records affiliated with it will appear as full text available in CDI. The collection will also be searchable if it's an ANI database in CDI. Then all of the records will be part of your expand search and will be included in this. So the collection will be searchable. The field, the CDI only full text activation in the Alma interface can be found in the CDI tab of the electronic collection editor, and it will show up in specific cases. It doesn't show up for every collection. When does it show up? It shows up for collections that, first of all, were set for this setting to yes during the CDI enablement, when we moved your activations from Primo Central to Alma, and also for link in records type of collections for CDI, which are available for CDI search activation. So they're indexed in CDI, you can search for them, and the linking is via the link in the records. Also, in case the CDI type is ANI database, you will be able to do this CDI only full text activation. So this is when the field shows up. Why do we not allow this field to be used for link resolver type of collections? This is because if you would activate a collection not in Alma, but only for CDI, using the CDI only full text activation, and the linking goes by the link resolver, then when you actually get to the record and you try to link, Alma will not have an active portfolio to link, so the link will fail. So this is why you can only use this setting for either ANI databases where you don't need to provide a full text link, or for linking records type of linking where Alma or SFIX are out of the question and do not need any activation. So this particular CDI override, why would you want to use it? You haven't activated the collection in Alma, but you still want it to show up as full text available in CDI. When can you use this option? We see that customers want to use it when the library does not want the collection and its content to appear, for example, in the local index or in the link resolver, but they do want to have it discoverable in CDI. So this is the typical example of when you could use this particular override setting. Okay, so this concludes my short summary of what Alma full text activation is and what its impact is on CDI. And this is just a summary slide on what happens in case a collection is active in Alma, what happens when it's not active in Alma, and what is the override setting that exists for both. I'm not going to explain all of this, so let's go to the next slide, which talks about the third setting in Alma that I wanted to explain a little bit. This is not about activation. This is about how you subscribe to a particular collection. And the setting in Alma is called we subscribe to only some titles in the collection. We also sometimes call it a selective setting, and the value can be yes or no, and this can be set for any collection in CDI in Alma that is available for CDI search activation. Keep in mind that this option does not show up for database types of collection because those are never selective. It's only showing up for aggregator or selective packages. Also, keep in mind that in the Alma UI, the field is read-only if you use already the CDI only full text activation, because that type of activation is also always on collection level. It's never selective. It's never via the activation of selective portfolios. So what is the impact of using this option on the CDI discovery? If you set this setting to yes, so you subscribe selectively, CDI will look at the active portfolios that you have in Alma and match them with its own content and will only provide full text indications for those active portfolios that you have in your collection. We call this title level rights, which means that you're entitled to only specific titles in the collection. If you set this setting to no, it means you're not selectively subscribing. CDI will set all the content of the collection to full text available without matching to individual portfolios. So here we're talking about collection level rights. You subscribe to the whole collection. And then we have some recommendations on when to use this particular setting. Keep in mind that the default settings are already good as they are in Alma, which means for link in record type of collections, the setting will be no, you don't subscribe selectively. For link resolver type of collections, the default setting is yes, so you subscribe selectively. And this is also the recommended setting. For link in record type of collections, where Alma is not in the equation, the link goes via the link in the CDI records. The recommendation is to keep this setting to no, and this will make sure that the whole collection will be flagged as full text available. For link resolver type of collections, we recommend to use the setting to and keep it set to yes, especially in case of partial activations in Alma. If you only subscribe to a subset of the portfolios, because if you then set this option to no, you don't subscribe selectively, you increase the chance of having linking issues in CDI because there is going to be a mismatch between the CDI records and the Alma and the activations in the Alma CKP. So this is the selective setting, and this concludes what I wanted to talk about regarding the full text activation and its settings in Alma. Last thing I want to talk about before we go into the actual troubleshooting is a little bit about Alma CDI search activation and its impact on CDI. So what is Alma CDI search activation? It has an impact on the CDI expand search. If you don't have a particular journal or book active, or you have an active portfolio for it in Alma, but you activate a collection in which this book or journal is indexed, you will find the results for this book or journal in the expand search. When you no longer filter by full text, but you expand the search beyond what your library subscribes to. So if a collection is active for search in CDI, then CDI records for these collections will be included in the expand search. And if you don't have the collection active, then this is not going to happen. CDI records affiliated with the collections will not be included in the expand search. This activation for search is only available for fully flexible setting customers, not for easy active, and it's only available for collections that are marked as available for CDI search activation. So you will not be able to activate for search, for example, a locally created collection. That will not be possible. Another thing I wanted to mention here, and that's the last thing I want to mention about the CDI search activation, is that CDI search activation is now also available for collections with the setting CDI search rights subscription. So prior to the May release, the May 2021 release for Alma, it was not possible to activate for search in CDI collections with the setting CDI search rights subscription. So if you had to pay for before you could actually search a particular collection in Alma, you had to activate this collection for full text or use the CDI only full text setting. This was because you had to indicate that you had a subscription. This full text activation flag was a trigger for CDI to know that you had a subscription and you were allowed to search. Now, this was not intuitive at all, especially for ANI content, where activating for full text did not make any sense. So we changed this behavior, and you can now activate for search collections that have the setting CDI search rights subscription. So you now actually have two options. You can activate the collection for search, and it will become searchable in CDI, or you can activate it if you already did this, or you have an existing setting, you want to do it in the future. You can still activate them for full text or use the CDI only full text setting. So both will make sure that CDI gets the information correctly and will make the collection searchable. So this is a change, but this should make it easier for you and more intuitive to do the activation for this type of subscription databases. Okay, so this concludes my summary of the activation settings in Alma. The next part of the session will be about troubleshooting activation and content issues in CDI. What I want to do in my part of the session before David talks about content issues is I want to talk about two different questions that come up very frequently when we analyze support cases for CDI. There's two questions that come up. The first one is, I want to find records for a specific Alma collection that I activated. How can I do that? I complete my activation in Alma. Now I want to check that actually the content is discoverable in CDI. That's the first question I'll talk about. And the second question is, I have a specific record that I found in CDI. Why is it showing up? What activation in Alma is causing this record to appear in CDI? So those two questions I will handle. I have covered them in earlier troubleshooting sessions, but I'll go over them again, and there are some updates to some of them. So, so this is what I'll cover, and then David will talk about more content-related troubleshooting issues. So the first question I'll handle is, I have an activation in Alma. I now want to check that it's working correctly in CDI by finding records for this collection. Before I start, I just want to mention that it takes some time before the activation that you do in Alma actually kicks in or becomes searchable or in CDI. And that is because there is a time lapse of 48 to 72 hours between when you make the change in Alma and the changes get published to CDI, and CDI actually creates new full text and searchable rights that are used by CDI. So it takes some time, but so that's something to keep in mind when you start looking at this. The first thing you can do if you search for a record in CDI is you look at the collection in Alma. So you start in Alma, and if you go to the electronic collection editor in the CDI tab, you can find what is called a DBID. And this is the identifier that is used in CDI. It's also sometimes called a provider package code or CDI collection ID. The short version of it is DBID, and this is really the identifier that is used in CDI to identify the collection. And Alma actually publishes the DBIDs of the collections you have active when it publishes its holdings information to CDI. So this is a screenshot that shows you this DBID, and for the collection in my example for Nexus Music Library, the DBID is a 3-letter code. It sometimes is also a 5-letter code, which is in this case CZN. You sometimes have multiple provider DBI package codes or DBIDs, and then they're comma separated, and you can pick any of them. So, but this is a code that we are going to use in the next step. So next thing you do is you go to your Primo discovery. So you go and execute a search. Any search will do. You search CDI, either in a blended scope with local or in a pure CDI scope that's not blended. So you search, in this case, I searched for malware, and any search will do. The only thing the purpose of this search is really to create a search URL that you can then modify with the DBID information in the next step. So in this case, I searched for the composer malware and in my search box, and the resulting search URL that I got looks like this. It goes to, in this case, the Primo demo server, and the query, this is the part we're going to change, says any field, so any contains malware. That's my search string. Now I'm going to change this, and I'm going to change it to the text in green at the bottom here. So I'm changing any to DBID, and malware I'm going to change to the DBID code that I found in Alma. So then I press enter and I re-execute the search. So I'm no longer searching for a search term malware, but I'm going to search for a DBID that is, in this case, CZN. So what you will get when you do this is you will get records from CDI that have the DBID identifier in the record. So this will return all of the records that you have that are available for you that have this particular DBID. So that's a good way of finding records for any activation that you did in Alma. We've gone through a process where we've added DBIDs to all of the collections in CDI. It's complete or is almost complete. So that means that this search should work for all collections that you've activated for full text or CDI only in CDI. This, of course, excludes any local collections or any collections in Alma that do not have a DBID. So this is the method that you should be using to find records for a specific collection that you have activated in Alma. A second method that you can use if you already have a record from a collection and you want to find other records for the same collection is you can use the first part of the record ID, and you truncate it by using a star. So in this case, I'm searching for other records from a record that I found that started with CDI Skillsoft books. This is the start of the record ID that you found. And if you search for the start of that, you will get all the records that start with this particular prefix. So that's another mechanism, another way of finding records for a specific Alma collection. So this is the summary for my first question. Let's go to the second question, and that is, I want to now check kind of the opposite of what I was looking for in the first question. In this case, I have a specific CDI record, and I want to know which collection did I activate in Alma that's causing this specific record to appear in CDI. I wonder, why did this record show up? Why am I getting this particular record in my search results? So the best way to check what activation in Alma caused this record to appear is to look in the full display of the record at a field that's called the source. This can also be found in the PNX, in the display section of the PNX in the source field. What you see here is the name of the collection as it's known to CDI. Keep in mind that the name of the collection that you see in the source is not always exactly the same as the collection name in Alma. And also, if you would change the collection name in Alma, it would not take into change the appearance of the collection in CDI, in the CDI search result. And that is because we actually are relying on two different knowledge bases, the SFX Alma knowledge base and the 360 knowledge base, and the collection names are not completely aligned. So there's a project ongoing in our Ex Libris content team to align and make sure that those names are identical. Until we've completed that project, there may still be some discrepancies between the name in Alma and the name that you see in CDI. What you can also see sometimes is that the source, the activation source field that you see in the full display of the record contains the string Alma SFX local collection, which is not a very meaningful name. It's a fallback. It's a name that we use for a collection in case CDI does not know the name of the collection. And why does it not know the name of the collection? It doesn't know it in the following three cases. First of all, CDI doesn't know about the names of local collections with journals or book portfolios. So if you created a local collection that doesn't have a DBID, that CDI does not know about, you'll still see full text availability for it, because we want to make sure that users can link to it, but we will not know the name. So that's why the name will be Alma SFX local collection. That's the first scenario. The second is that some big consortia packages from the community zone in Alma do not have do not have a DBID and do not have a collection name in CDI. So we make sure in the Alma community zone that all of the collections, all of the main collections or packages that are available to all of our customers are mapped, but some consortia packages that are specific to a specific country or a consortium that are in the community zone will not have this mapping. A third case in which you will see this indication is for collections that have no DBID yet mapped to it in Alma SFX. This is a small subset of our community zone collections, and we're again working on making sure they have a DBID mapping, but if they don't have it yet, that will be why you will see this indication, Alma SFX local collection. The last thing to keep in mind is that if a collection is active only for search and not for full text, then there will also not be a source indication. The source indication is there for anything that you've activated for full text, and also any ANI databases that require a subscription. But if it's something that you've only activated for search, not for full text, and it does not require a subscription for searching, then it will not have this indication. As a second option that is also quite useful in some cases is to check the record linking. And this is especially, in this case, the screenshot here is an example of link in record type of linking. And the information about a collection that you activated in Alma can in this case be found because the link will always say view item in or link to full text in. And then you have the provider name, and the provider name gives you an indication of what you activated in Alma that triggered this link to appear. You can also look at the record linking in case of OpenURL type of links. What you will see then is in the View It section, you will see that you'll see the services that are active in Alma. So in this case, the name of the collection in Alma is the one that will appear in the link resolver section of the full display. So here, this also gives you a good indication of what activations in Alma actually made this particular record show up in CDI. So this is a summary of the way to check which collections are causing a specific record to appear in CDI, and just the solutions that we currently propose to use are, first of all, checking the record source. So look at the activation source in the full display and checking the linking. One thing to keep in mind is that we are also working on an extended tool to provide you with additional ways to check for activation. So it's a tool that we will want to use to explain why a particular record shows up in your CDI search. And this tool is planned to be released to a small group of testers in the coming months. So it's something that will come later in the year. And that will give you more advanced information about which collection in Alma, which activation is making this particular record show up. And this concludes my part about the activation troubleshooting. Let's go to the next part of the session, and this will be about content issues, and this part is going to be handled by David. So I'm gonna mute myself.
Okay, so thank you, Liva. Hello all, my name is David Anegbi. I am the Discovery Operation Manager in the content group, and my team is responsible for the content in CDI, the maintenance, adding new content, and so on. Continuing Liva's presentation, we now will focus more on the content issues. So we'll start with the common scenario of the link that can be fail. So as we said, our scenario, our story that a customer or a user is finding a results that they wish to see the full text. They click to see the link, and then the link is not working as expected. It might be that there is no link at all, and it might be that the links is leading to an error page or for page, or to leading to a place where different than the expected, a different article, or it might be a journal level when the user is expecting to see the article itself. So when it comes, as we said, we have two methods of linking in CDI. We have the open URL linking, the link resolver, and we have the linking record. So Livy already explained how to identify which linking method you're now using. Of course, you don't have to know this to open the case, but this is something that is helpful. And when we have a problem in open URL link, we will ask you to report to us in a Salesforce case. And what we do in these cases. A link resolver linking is working based on the metadata of the record. As we know, link resolver, all the idea of link resolver is actually taking the metadata from the record, creating a unique identifier or unique identity for the resource, and then with this data, build a link, a working link to any provider platform that supports the syntax and actually has full text for this resource. It might, of course, many of link resolver are working with metadata, but we also working with provider ID, taking the provider ID, a unique identifier for this article, and this, of course, improves the linking for the provider that provides us with provider ID. In case this open URL link is not working, and we see that we have problem with metadata in the record, we will correct the metadata of the individual record. For example, if the DOI is not correct, or the ISSN is not correct, or the volume or the issue, so we will fix this so the link will work. Of course, when our analysts see that we have a problem on the title and not only in specific records, we will fix things on the title, which means if a provider has sent us records for a journal, and in all these records they put invalid or incorrect ISSN, so the correction will be on the title. I mean, for all the records belong to this title. Sometimes the open URL linking is failing on the other side, in the collection level, means that the parser is actually the piece of code or the process that actually takes the open URL from Primo and generates the link according to the link syntax that is we know from the provider. And this is not working well. In this case, the team will work to fix the parser if we need to accommodate or change the syntax. And for these corrections, many times we need some intervention and help from the provider to understand actually how they support and how they expect customers to use the link resolver to get to the platform. But these fixes, as we said, are happening on the collection level. When we work with link in record, here the cases of one record failures is less common because it's not relying on metadata. We get a direct link from the provider on the record. But of course, we still have cases where the specific record, the specific link is not working. Sometimes it depends on the provider also because they changed something, they didn't update the record. But also here we will fix the link, or if it's not working, we may also remove the record. In most cases, when it happens in link and record, it's a broader issue, and it happens on the collection level. Sometimes the provider has changed the syntax without coordinating with us. Sometimes the website or the server of the provider is not able to get all the requests and the links that are coming from Discovery. So in these cases also, we work with the provider to get a working syntax for this collection. Let's go on. Okay, another issue that may arise when you use the CDI records is metadata issues. And now I'm talking about metadata issues that are not connected to linking, not, as we said before, ISSN, ISBN, DOI, identifiers that are causing problems with link resolver, but metadata issues, for example, author is misspelled, author is missing, citation is not correct, and so on. In this case, we need to remember that these metadata issues are not usually harming the functionality of the linking, but they do cause problems, of course, when students are trying to use the citation and have the citation directly from Primo in their papers. So, of course, we need to make the metadata in high quality and correct as we can. So in case of specific records as well, we also correct it when we can. In case of broad issue or missing metadata, also here we need to remember that CDI metadata, we get it from the providers and we're relying on their cataloging in most cases. So also here we contact the provider and we ask to correct or to enrich the metadata from the provider. And then when the provider is fixing this on their side, they're sending us the updated record or records, and we update the index. One note here, and we also published an article about this a few weeks ago about some aggregators, and we talk mainly about DataCite, OpenRec, Crossref. And these aggregators, we need to understand that a provider that has full text and selling full text and selling access to full text and is providing us records, and the records in most cases will be on high quality. And when it comes to aggregators, of course, it's also in high quality, but we need to remember that they get content from various sources and various contributors. And many times in these cases, what we see is that the aggregator is not able to fix things on their end because they need to go another step and actually ask for the fix from the content contributor to the aggregator platform. In these cases, we say that these aggregators are not making changes to the data. So when we cannot get the cooperation from the providers, in this case, for example, we do what we can on our side, and we fix data on however we can do it. But in some cases, there are limits and to the correction that we can do with this content. Okay, now I want to dive a little bit deeper to another scenarios that we see cases about it, and I would like to explain first why it happens and what things that you can do and what the things that we in Exlibris are planning to do to solve this. So the scenario is when customers see full text online in the brief display, but it changes to no full text in the full display. So as you can see, I'm searching something and then I see the record with the green indication full text available. I click on the full text available. I get the full view. I search for, I go directly to the link section and then I see the gray no full text. So what happens here? Let's explain. First, we need to explain that this happens only in link resolver collections. In the brief results where we have the record marked as available, this is a result of collection level rights, which means that the customer have activated the collection with the we subscribe to only some titles in this collection marked as no. And this means, as Livia explained earlier in this session, that the customer, the Alma is sending to CDI that this customer has access to all of this content on the collection level. So if we have a record that belongs to this collection, it gets the indication of full text available. But then when we click and we go to see the full text, we're actually starting to use the link resolver, the Alma link resolver. In an Alma link resolver, we use the process called real-time availability, which means that after we did the CDI writes process, we want to check now against Alma directly on the fly and to find the title and the active portfolio to create the working link. And then when this process comes to play, we see that the records are not available. And this is a result of, in most cases, mismatch between CDI and Alma. So in cases where we have these identifiers or titles mismatch between CDI and Alma, the result will be, as we said, that there will be no working links in the full view of the record. Okay, so what to do in these cases? First option that customers can do on their own, if it suits and if this is the case, is to change the configuration option from we subscribe to only some titles in this collection from no to yes. This is a good option if you're not subscribed to all content and you're willing to see only the content that has identifiers and will work in CDI writes will work exactly as it works with the real-time availability. It means CDI writes will show full text available when they have the identifier match, and then also when it comes to the link resolver part, the real-time availability, there will be match based on identifiers. This is one option. Second options, of course, is to report to Exlibris, and what we will do in these cases, we have several options. The easiest and the handy option is to match the title identifier between CDI record and the Alma portfolio. So real-time availability will show same indication as the brief. So we're actually fixing and aligning the titles between CDI and the KB. This is one option. Second option, which is more robust and not taking care of record by record or title by title, but in any collection, will be, if this is an option, is to change the collection to work with linking record. Of course, this is not a possibility for all collections, but it is an option for collections that, in any case, their content is relatively unique, and there are no identifiers in the content. I mean, it will be very hard to do a link resolver match by identifier. And in these cases, we will move and change them to link in record. Another option that we have in our arsenal, you can say, and we are starting to use this, is making collections work as hybrid linking. In cases where we cannot change all the collection to link in record because the content is hybrid. I mean, we have content which is, some of the content is classic academic content like journal article, and also newspaper articles and archival material and so on. And we know providers are selling these products, and they're combining this set of content, different content types into one collection. This is a common thing in the industry. So in cases like this, when we see that we have problems with non-identifiers type, we will consider to make it hybrid. What does it mean? That records with identifiers will work with link resolver, and records without identifiers will work with link in record. This means that the indication on the Alma collection will be, I mean, when you check the Alma collection, the descriptive field, the CDI fields, you will see that the linking method of this collection is hybrid. And this means that part of the records will work as link in record and part in with link resolver. Let's go one slide ahead and just to explain about our actual tasks here with what we just talked. So We talked about changing collection to link in record. So what we actually are doing now is ProQuest newspapers collection. We are now finalizing the list of ProQuest newspapers collection that will be replaced or changed from a link resolver to link in record. We will publish the full list this month, and we will do the change. This is one thing that we do. The second thing that we do is we're focusing on ProQuest Central collection that we know it's a very big collection. It has, as I said, many content types in it. And here also we are changing it to hybrid linking collection. We are releasing it on June. Currently, we have the citations and the newspaper content without identifiers in it as records or content types that will work with link in record. But what we are doing now is actually analyzing which other content types will be good to work with link in record. And this change will happen on planned to be on June. Yeah, okay. We actually conclude and we say that we advise you again and suggest to go back to the documentation about CDI and about the troubleshooting tips and tricks that actually summarize most of Liva's part in this webinar, and also read again about serial activation. Regarding support, in any case, in any scenario, please open a Salesforce case and our support teams will handle it. And for more general questions, we still have the cdi_info@exlibris.com email, and the product management and the CDI team is answering general questions via this email. And thank you all.